My mum comes from Macclesfield. My mum grew up in Macclesfield. Macclesfield is a small town in the Adelaide Hills in South Australia. It is 45 kilometres from Adelaide and is part of the Mount Lofty Ranges and the Angus Valley. My mum grew up on a dairy farm just on the outskirts of Macclesfield. She lived with her mum and her dad and her big sister Margaret. When she went to school or into town, they walked or went in her dad's truck. Here is a picture of my auntie, Margaret. Grandma, Grandpa and Mum is at the front. This picture is my mum and my auntie milking the cows, and at the bottom is a picture of my grandpa and his truck. Macclesfield has the Angus River flowing through it. It flows towards Strathalbyn and then out into Lake Alexandrina at Mylor. Long ago, people would swim in a deep part of the river called the Crystal Lake Swimming Pool. There are some old buildings in Macclesfield, such as 2 pubs and some churches. The old buildings were built from limestone and marble found in the local area. In 2006, there were 832 people living in Macclesfield. When my mum lived in Macclesfield, there were a lot of dairy farms, and one of the main businesses in town was the Jacob's Cheese Factory. They made high-quality cheeses that were sold in Australia and overseas. It was important to the town because the factory provided employment for many families and was the reason why they lived there. The town hall was also an important place, as it was where the community came together for social gathering. They would show movies at the town hall, but my mum calls them the pictures. They would also have dances at the town hall, which was a popular pastime when she was older. For my mum, the farm was an important place to her. She liked the animals on the farm and enjoyed going rabbit trapping, riding a bike and milking the cows. My mum spent a lot of her time at home and didn't go into the town very often. When my mum started school, she was homeschooled, but went to school at Macclesfield when she was in Year 2. She wasn't involved in any community groups until she was much older. Macclesfield would sometimes hold fetes, and every Anzac Day there was a march down the main street. Some of the children who learned first aid with the Red Cross would follow behind the returned servicemen as they marched down the street. This was a very important event, and as World War II had just ended, there were many soldiers marching and many people who had been affected by the war. All the community got involved. Before Europeans came to Australia, the first people to live in Macclesfield were the Paramount people. They were called the area Kangawiranilla, which means a place for water and kangaroos. The founder of Macclesfield was George Devonport, who planned the town. When my mum lived there, most people were dairy farmers or worked in the town. Today the farms have been sold into smaller blocks and people enjoy living there for the open spaces to keep horses and pets. Most people do not work in Macclesfield and travel to work in larger towns or even Adelaide. I live in Adelaide, which is very different to Macclesfield. Where I live, there are large shopping centres, high-rise buildings, traffic lights and lots of concrete. You can catch a bus or tram to get to most places, and there are a lot of people who live there. In Macclesfield, there isn't any large shops. There are less people living there, and there is far more trees and plenty of landscape. Like Adelaide, Macclesfield has parklands that anyone can enjoy for sports, picnics or walking. Macclesfield has changed a lot since my mum lived there. The dairy farmers have moved to larger places further away and people have moved in to build new houses on the farmland. The cheese factory closed down when I was little. Macclesfield has always had 2 pubs and they are still there today.